What's happening? Benton here with an announcement. There will be no pre-recorded after show today. My apologies. I'm not feeling up to it. As some of you may know, I've started doing something I intend to do on a nearly daily basis, although not today, but on a. Oh, wait a minute. Let's get our crawl going here. Yes, this content is pre-recorded, and I assure you that we are not, in fact, live. Does that mean we're dead? I don't know. Good question. Shout out to the audience. Shout out to the longtime OGs of whatever this is we're doing over here. The ad hoc, grassroots, dare we say, community. And I don't believe I'm going to be on cam for this one. When I woke up this morning and tuned into my own YouTube channel, where yesterday's version of this whatever this is I'm doing, this pre-recorded material, was airing, I saw that I quite comically I kept sitting back into my chair only to spring forward mere moments later with my poor vision, because of due in large part to my advanced age, as well as various issues, illnesses, malabsorption, nutritional deficiencies, arguably. Although I've noticed the quality of my fingernails is beginning to improve. They've been quite brittle for quite some time, and got the lines, those lines and little spots and stuff, which can be indicative of some nutritional deficiencies. But it does seem to be improving. Although now seems like my hair's falling out. Although I think maybe that was due to the bioweapon. I've never had any hair loss. And supposedly that comes from your mother's dad, they say, the hair loss. And he had a full head of hair, as far as I know. Even my dad still has a decent amount of hair on his head. I didn't think I was going to lose mine. Here I am at 47. I guess I'm going to lose my hair now because of the bioweapon attack. Thanks. But yeah, like I said, there won't be a bonus less than 1 hour. Although I guess there is, because now I'm doing it. So 2.5 minutes down, however many left to go. But yeah, StreamYard at the $25 tier, $25 a month tier, it allows me I can make a recording, such as I'm doing right now, recording this live, meaning unedited, recording this live on my PC here, and to StreamYard. And then some people have been confused. They say, well, why isn't this showing up as a premiere since it's pre-recorded? That's because I don't want to use the bandwidth. I don't want to record this directly to my computer and then have to upload the file, to YouTube. The way StreamYard does it, it does seem to be a little easier on the bandwidth. Now, I did get my Verizon hotspot activated yesterday, so I'm now on the 150 gigabytes of hotspot data. Feeling pretty good about that. Not feeling well in general, though. Not feeling quite unwell. Although as I covered on the stream, when was that? Thursday morning stream, and I guess I'm recording this Thursday to air, early Friday morning in my more normal time slot, at least when I was truck driving. Some of you. Now, how long will the broadcasts continue and people won't even know Benton as a trucker? Right. I don't know. And I really have no desire to go back to work. I do like earning an income. In fact, I got what may very well be my last paycheck last week, although it's possible I'm being sent some small pittance. The check may, in fact, be in the mail. Now I'm in a bit of a transition in my life. I'm trying to decide. I really have no desire to purchase what a truck driver would refer to as a personal vehicle, just a car, a car, a vehicle to drive around in, like most folks have. When the gasoline got up to $5 plus a gallon, even though I realize, oh, it's cheap. And it's funny how they play those psychological games on us. Even my dad was like, when the gas came back down to somewhere near reasonable, although even that's debatable. It's like, oh, look, it's cheap. I said, well, yeah, that's what they want you to think. Yeah, spike it up to 5 and then drop it to 289, and now you think 289 is a bargain. See how quickly they preyed upon your psychology, sir. But yeah, it's what is it, 3 something where I'm at now in Dallas, Fort Worth. Just no desire to pay for it. But I moved out of my big rig company truck, kind of could have planned that a little better, although the way it worked out, I think, everything always works out, as they say. Not that I'm not one of these everything happens for a reason kind of guys, but everything does always work out. But now I'm in a motel with no vehicle, and most of my belongings, although most of these belongings I've purchased since I left my deathbed and decided to go ahead and keep on living after nearly drinking myself to death in combination with my various illnesses. And not quite sure how much longer I have to live. Some days it feels like it may not be that many more, and I really don't know. And I would say there towards the end of the recent spate of working as a long haul truck driver, I think I was very much getting to where I probably wasn't going to be able to continue. Although I was very productive as recently as January. I know I hit our company would give a bonus if you hit 12,000 miles. If you got paid for 12,000 miles in a calendar month, I'd actually hit that bonus as recently as January, worked all but 2 days. So I don't know. At some point, I imagine I'll be the perfect combination of rested up enough, well rested in my illnesses, and then also broke, because I do have a small nest egg I've saved up. It's nothing. Well, it's let's be honest, it's more than what your average person has. Walking around money, right? But $350 a week in a motel, you know, um, which if you think about it, that sounds crazy. You're like $350, but dude, that's $1,400 a month. Which actually it would be more than that if you actually lived in this motel, because it's paying by the week. You're actually paying, what is that? That'd be 48 weeks in a year, so you got an extra 4 weeks somewhere. But even hell, let's average that out. It sounds crazy, but until you compare it to what people are actually paying for rent, it's really not that bad. Now I know by the way, I'm from Arkansas originally, and that is there's still many places that one can live affordably in Arkansas. But why? Why would anybody want to do that? But so 350 times 52, 12, 1,500 a month. But yeah, 15, 16 a month. I mean, it sounds crazy. So 350 sounds kind of crazy, but really 15, 16 a month, all bills paid. Don't have to even put up a security deposit. No first and month, no first and last. No lease, no credit check, no nothing. Just show them your ID. Here's some cash, and here's your room, sir. And I think motels kind of get a bad rap in a lot of ways. I like motels and hotels, but this place for the area, I guess I don't know, 350 is pushing it a little bit, but I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of or ripped off. I'd prefer to give them closer to 300, or hell, I'd even give them 1,200 for a whole month. I actually thought about, and I paid. I like to pay a day early, so I went ahead and paid my 350 earlier. In fact, I got to go track down the guy, his wife. Of course, it's an old couple from India owning and operating the motel. I presume they own it. Pretty nice property, actually. They've done well for themselves, it seems. And I do like them getting the money versus just some faceless, corporation or hedge fund that owns some apartment building somewhere. And for those who may not know, I myself have not lived in a house or an apartment probably 15 years. I'm not good with time or remembering what happened when, but yeah, probably been around 15 years or so. I think that sounds about right. Yeah, somewhere in there. And I really have no desire to return to it, although I do enjoy living in a motel. Now, and previously, my last motel stint, well, the last one was when I was attempting to recover from all the damage I had done to myself with alcohol, drinking, literally attempting to drink myself to death. In some, while not exactly full on leaving Las Vegas, the movie, you know, I've known for a long time that my organs and my physicality, some people can drink for 20 plus years, no problem, daily drink. Because of my binge drinking in the past, I could tell, okay, my body's can't stand up to this on a daily basis. And that was actually my second go around at extended, weeks and months of daily drinking. And it finally got so serious that I think my organs just tapped out, and my organs were like, wow, he's really going to kill us with this alcohol. And I think they just kind of braced for it. And, um, after my 3 weeks of hellish, nightmarish withdrawals, getting off of the alcohol, which shout out to Rick Simpson oil and vape pens from Colorado recreational dispensaries, which got me through my time of need there for 3 weeks. Then after some bed rest and getting the figuring out what I could actually eat, and then figuring out some supplements to help me out, and spent about a week in a tent. Also did panhandled every day just to be able to feed myself. That went on for about a month, I believe. Was staying. My father had left his abusive domestic situation with his second wife, so me and him were staying in a motel together. And I recovered enough, and then he was able to move into an apartment, and I was able to go back to truck driving. And honestly, it was so bad. My health was so bad. I said, well, shit, hopefully I can, worst case scenario, I can do this long enough to at least get a little bit of money in my pocket. And, thankfully was able to do it for several, I don't even know how many months consecutively. Trying to think. It was coming to be the end of the summer. So I don't know, somewhere around 6 months, I guess, probably. I don't know. Who even knows? But so now I got some money saved up. I've got what looks to be about $1,000 worth of nutritional supplements on the dresser across the room. I don't have the cam. Connected, or I'd show you actually and shout out to Chalk Body Outline. He meant to go on Get Chalked Up. He went live from Chalk Body Outline, but he's been linking up. He's been starting his own live streams, but he's been linking up with my live streams, and then so the concurrent viewers go much higher than. I've been hitting 30 though solo, so for me it's good. 30 in the morning times, and when I say morning, I mean late morning for me, because now I'm observing motel quiet hours instead of my loud booming voice. Certainly, I'm sure it carries all throughout the motel, I'm assuming. But Drew had mentioned something about shit. Now I think I forgot what it was that he brought up. Oh, he was talking about, I guess, Dick's webcam. He was saying that I'm a homeless truck driver in a motel or whatever, and my webcam looked better than Dick's, because Dick's was real, Freedom Growers was real fuzzy or whatever. But I finally figured out old cell phones in many ways make the best webcams, at least for yours truly, because I bought some webcam, but it was such a cheap, cheesy. As much as one reads these Amazon reviews and thinks they've done their research, you get what you pay for on a webcam, right? So the old Motorola stylus, Moto G stylus phone works quite well as a webcam here, running Linux. And although it killed the battery, so it's over there charging as we speak. But yeah, that's a pretty good preamble, 15-minute preamble. And I had shouted out QE Quantum Epic, this lady who's been showing up in a lot of these you can't handle the truth community live streams or whatever we're calling it, the so-called truth community, truthers. I don't even know anymore. Do any of these terms even have a meaning at this point, right? Um, and if anybody's curious, one of the main reasons I'm, instead of going live myself at what is it, 2:26 in the afternoon, I'd rather show due deference to Mr. Paul Enslaved um, versus doing my own live stream. Not that it would even take away from his numbers. If anything, it would probably just be that I would be talking to even less people than normal, which is fine. I can provo kid it up to some extent. But the fact is, I'm not provo kid. I think he probably wants likes and subscribers also. But yeah, I want people to subscribe. But what I like about this channel, and I've said it before, whose house, our house, although I think we're starting to see over time that's not exactly true. I think necessarily it to some extent it is becoming more about yours truly. I mean, and maybe that's an ebb and a flow and it goes up and it goes down. But I certainly appreciate and I will continue to belabor these points, the ad hoc grassroots nature of the thing. But I guess since it is, and I am very memeable, as you may have noticed. So, maybe I'm just the fool, the mascot, the person who's just silly and foolish enough to actually just go out onto center stage and start running his yap long enough for these other things, to occur around me. But I would say this: it takes a lot for me to, um, to not do everything I can to facilitate anybody who wants to participate, such as we've seen recently. Shout out to Robin, who's supplied some of the recent thumbnails. Um, although the thumbnail for yesterday's broadcast brought to you by CBO himself, and I got out of my synthetic cannabinoid haze enough to finally see what his artistic vision was. I think initially I was too stoned to quite appreciate it, and I'm certainly feeling good about uh, being almost back to my normal state of mind, I should say. It certainly seems like I appreciate the audience, and I said this on the earlier broadcast. I certainly appreciate the audience putting up with me in that regard. I know it was probably strange and a bit disconcerting at times, just because I know I was certainly out of it for much of what occurred. But then I think some really interesting things happened uh, via the broadcast that may not have occurred otherwise. So yeah, I feel good about it, and I certainly feel compelled to continue to produce content. Even though I realize that the chances of me, well, I will say this: I wouldn't say that the chances of me earning a living are slim to none. I think that depends on what does one consider earning a living. So if I'm talking about replacing my truck driving salary, which is on average around close to $1,200 a week after taxes on average, probably I'd say 1150. Okay, that accounts for the higher than normal weeks and then the lower than normal weeks. But generally speaking, if I'm out on the road for weeks and months on end, which I'm one of the rare birds that lives in the truck as a company driver and just don't take home time, or like I say, this time I didn't even, in the past I've at least had a personal vehicle, a car parked at the company terminal where I could at least occasionally move out of the truck. This time I just said fuck it and YOLO'd it, and just lived in the truck. As far as, okay, now kind of had whatever disagreement I had with the company, we weren't seeing eye to eye, and then they were basically like, hey, bring that truck to the yard or we're going to have to report it to the authorities. And I don't even know how that even works, but it's like I'm not going to try to keep their truck anyway. But so I moved out of this thing quick, fast, in a hurry. Which, it's funny how things work out, because if I had known about this motel in this location, this is the perfect location for me to actually just take, so this is the end of my second week going into my third week here in the motel. I easily could have stayed on good terms with the company, which that's kind of, in truck driving, that really most likely doesn't even really matter in the long run, but because there's a lot of companies out there. But it's definitely better not to burn a bridge, generally speaking. But and here's another thing. I can honestly say that I did my best. Like I was, I'm struggling against so much health wise that like I say, I'm pretty sure there was months when I was literally one of the top drivers in the company based on whatever they're looking for, whatever their metrics are, whatever they consider to be good for their bottom line. And these dispatchers, man, these people, some of them, their bonuses literally depend on like my how I perform on the job. So there's a lot of leeway given to a driver such as myself in a lot of ways. But I wouldn't say I have regrets. It's just it's regrettable in some ways the way it ended, but I don't have any hard feelings. I don't think the company does. And look, this is truck driving. I'm sure this operations manager, I'm sure he's seen it all. It's probably not the first time somebody started living in one of their trucks and then started having some kind of health issues. In fact, the truck that I was living in, they Greyhound bused me to pick that up in the middle of nowhere, just parked at some mom and pop truck stop. It had been there so long that the batteries literally had to be replaced. You couldn't even thing wouldn't it was they were so dead you couldn't do anything with them. And which does say a little bit about the laissez-faire nature of the corporate culture. They're Eastern Europeans, but a lot of them are in America. But even some of those are still culturally Eastern European. Um, yeah, laissez-faire that'd be my that'd be the best way to describe the corporate culture. So, which I enjoyed to some extent, but finally they realized that they probably should just go ahead and cut ties with me. I guess I don't know. Who even knows? Um, I was definitely ready to take a break at that point. But like I said, if I had even realized, it was funny, I was actually looking for motels at a certain point. And if you ever just go on Google Maps and type in motel, like this is one of those ones that shows up, but just like on a little red dot where you could almost miss it. And I guess with my eyesight, I just never saw that this thing was even here. But then surprise, surprise, when they're like, hey, bring the truck back. And I'm like, yo, I really kind of need some help or some leeway. I got to get all my, I live in this motherfucker. I got everything in here. And they're basically like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not going to help you out. So I don't know what to tell you. Now they were acting like they were going to let me bring it back to the yard and then hang out over the weekend and sort of figure out what to do. But chances are I would have showed up and they would have just been told me to beat it. So I found this motel and was able to very quickly give them some money. And again, you can't move into an apartment that quickly, generally speaking. And it's furnished, and the lights work, and so got electricity. Didn't have to sign up for any bills. Didn't have to worry about my poor credit rating. Oh well, you got to put a fucking cash deposit down to get the gas turned on. Now you got to put a cash deposit down to get the electric turned on. All of that rigmarole. I'm just not interested, man. I've just I lost interest in living that way a long time ago. And I know a lot of people, this is your daily experience, your daily life. And I lived that way, hell, first 35 years of my life. So I had damn near 20 straight years. I left my parents' house. I was still 17. So I had 25 years, a solid 25 years of, living what I thought was my best normie life, right? That so-called life of quiet desperation. I mean, that's ultimately what it was. And, for whatever reason, and I don't even like the phrase wake up, but, that Fight Club movie, that was one of the first big things that the things you own end up owning you. That for whatever reason, that really stuck with me. And I've always had a bit of a kind of a monastic, contemplative kind of lost in my own world type of thing going on. And, certainly was having trouble fitting into society, having trouble, although I'm always been a great employee, studious, serious, responsible and all of that, but started having enough personal problems. Thankfully, never ended up in the mental health system or medicated. Thankfully, never ended up in the criminal justice system. Thankfully. So I got all that going for me. Of course, some of that's probably due to being programmed from a very early age by a mind control cult known as the Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you've ever known any Jehovah's Witnesses, they come across in a certain pleasing, people pleasing, non-threatening, fit into society kind of way, even as they don't fit in, right? It's And by the way, feel free to email me. I want to get some people. I want to do some one-on-ones with this. So I'm at least while I'm paying for this motel and paying for StreamYard and paying for uh, a cell phone, which isn't strictly necessary for this, but now I'm paying for a Wi-Fi, 150 gigs of data. I sort of feel like it's a waste of the day, if I don't go live in the morning, if I don't do at least an hour of bonus content, and see, even as productive as I may seem, um, I can still look back and realize that I've wasted a lot of productivity and even my own content. Like Drew pointed out, there's a lot of I could be making clips, I could be doing shorts. Like there's a lot I could be doing, just with my already existing catalog of content. So, it can be a blessing in disguise, the fact that I'm pretty much awake by, I'd say, 2 a.m. every morning. And see, what's funny is when I'm driving a truck long haul, and I'm going across various time zones, and then what seems to happen is, eventually I'm waking up at like 11 p.m. or midnight, pretty much no matter what. And then if I sleep in, I might sleep into like 1 or 1:30. But then some of that is time zone. I'm actually, I'm not even really sleeping in because it's just that I've changed the time zone or whatever. Um, but I've noticed, like, when I was recovering enough from these illnesses to go back to work, I got to where I was sleeping until about 3 a.m. I want to say 3:30, and then I was headed out. I didn't have phone service, so I was headed out the door by like 4 a.m. and I'd go sit in front of the Walmart, and I was downloading YouTube videos and podcasts, using Walmart's Wi-Fi, and then I'd go in there and do my shopping when they opened at 6, and maybe cruise over to Starbucks if I felt like their bandwidth was hitting a little harder. So, I certainly have a strong desire to avoid e-begging, although I'm not above e-begging. Hell, I'm not above regular begging. I was literally holding a piece of cardboard not that long ago. Um, but this is where I do align with someone like Paul Enslaved, if you're familiar with that content creator. Um, kind of a value exchange, or maybe I'm misusing some of the things I've heard him say. So let's take his name off of it. But like I feel like if I'm giving something through my creativity and my content, and then eventually I'm able, because look, at some point I'm not going to be able to drive a big rig full time. It's just not going to be possible with my health. But most likely I'm going to need to rest up and then go back to it for some period of time, right? And then you look at the time of year, if I was a little more organized, I could have just, the money I'm spending on this motel, I could have just bought a car with effectively the same amount of money I'm going to spend staying here. And then I could have went and found some place to camp out because the weather's nice. Well, pretty soon it's not going to be, sleeping in your car. And I don't even like to sleep in a car. I prefer to pitch a tent, but it's going to be a little too hot for that. And in fact, the last time when I said I pitched a tent for like a week, that was the dead of summer, and it's between the bugs and the heat. It's lucky to get 2.5, 3 hours of sleep a night. So, and I lived outside, and shout out to JG, I am homeless. I've been homeless for many years now, and I do identify as a homeless person. I don't really identify as a truck driver or a trucker, but I certainly immerse myself in that homeless vagabond, fringe of society street person. And I've always been a street person. I came out of the womb that way, seemingly. I've always just been at home in the streets, not in a criminal way, but just I'm a street person. Always have been. I don't know what that is exactly, but it was just totally normal for me to, at a young age, to just go off into cities by myself. And I'm from Arkansas, and I may sound like a country boy sometimes, but I'm actually from a city. I'm not a country boy. I ain't from the country. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, feel free to email me. And I've been I brought up QE earlier, Quantum Epic. Still not a huge fan. I think that's a name that reads better than it says out loud. Some of these names, I think it looks cool, but when you read it, and she sent me a long email, and you know, I'm in the past. I have some writing skills, and I've been, and Drew can probably tell you this. I've been known to write a long email, and then finally I was able to pull my head out of my ass and to realize, oh, nobody reads these anymore, these long emails. And I don't even read them. It's funny. I used to read long emails. I had jobs, I had a whole life, former life, even before homelessness. I lived, a whole life before that. And, I was in the corporate world and was never high powered or highfalutin. I never had a high income, but, I was in corporate America to some extent. And, well, in fact, had a badge to go into the ISD of the largest corporation on the planet at the time, actually Walmart. So, yeah, I was very much a part of corporate America, and I think I lost my larger point here. Phooey. Well, that happens sometimes. I was going to bring Drew back into it somehow. Oh, the long emails. And, Drew was kind of able to point out to me a little bit that, hey, ain't nobody got time for reading that. And just realizing, observing myself, like, yeah, I don't even read long emails. Like, why do, and that's really kind of funny how, as much as other people were sort of hinting around to me, I never really got it until I realized, oh, especially once I started the podcast and, nightmaredystopia.com. And sometimes people would send me these long, especially, and I actually have some guilt, shout out to Dark Glasses Woody. I have a little bit of guilt because he sends me these emails and they're so well written and dense. And so his thinking is there's several levels above my own that it's like, man, am I really going to sit here for an hour and try to figure out what the fuck he's talking about? I mean, and really, I know what he's talking about to some extent, but it's just I've realized at a certain point, I don't know what happened or what changed. I've been a reader my whole life, dude. I've it's kind of funny. I did create the 1,000 books meme where they kind of make fun of this, archaicist Jason Brashears for talking about how many books he's read. I actually came up with that idea, it was a bit hyperbolic and tongue in cheek, but I'm certain I've read over 1,000 books in my life. I mean, there's no fucking way I haven't. Probably, dude, if you count all the bullshit fiction I read in school as a child, I mean, dude, I literally read a fiction book a day in elementary school. That's not an exaggeration. Every day of the school year, I read an entire book while the teacher was droning on and the wah, 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 because I didn't understand that my learning style is I don't learn from whatever that bitch is talking about. It's not my learning style. So anyway, but yeah, I got some guilt around that. And, but back to this Quantum Epic. I've been fascinated by this psychology of these, because look, it's not a pejorative. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but this is just and I'm sure she's had novel experiences in her life. I don't know her life. But here's where I think she might be confused. I don't want to know her life. Like I really, dude, I'm so far up my own ass. Like I'm really not that interested in most folks, period. I'm not into people and personalities, but I think maybe some of us, and that's something I recognize in the so-called truth community. So many people, and look, it's not a character flaw. It's just I'm not this way, so I notice when other people are. Because the reality is, if so many people weren't fascinated by people and personalities, I wouldn't have an audience on the internet, most likely. I mean, not for whatever this is, and it seems like the thing's going to keep going, whatever it is. And part of that is that I do, I'm a whatever, it's a whole thing, right? But me personally, I'm not into that. I might meet somebody who's kind of quirky and irreverent, if you could describe me that way, oddball, kind of march the beat of his own drum in some ways. If I meet another version of me in real life, I'm just like, okay, well, I sort of know what that is and how that manifests. And it's just, unless we just happen to vibe like I might vibe with anybody else, it's just neither here nor there. But, I realize that I've lived in some unconventional ways, and I look at things from, what may appear to be a somewhat unique perspective some of the time, although I don't really see it that way necessarily. But so, I sort of get it on those levels. So I'm not. So some of these things that are critiques or they seem like critiques and criticisms. Well, they are critiques, but it's not. I'm not putting things out there like, oh, this needs to change. It's no. I'm actually fascinated, and furthermore, it's kind of like that rant I went on this morning on the morning show. The live stream. I just heard Freedom Grower, Dick say just a few different key phrases on his live stream, and it just now I'm just off to the races, like with this whatever's going on in my head, and then it became what may well have been my only halfway decent rant since I parked the truck, because something about driving that truck certainly, and I do have to watch the clock because I cannot exceed an hour. I'll have to actually edit the file. The goal of this is to stay under the 1 hour limit for there's no limit to the length of the live stream, but there is a limit to how long StreamYard will live stream a pre-recorded video, which, by the way, that's why I'm not able to do it as a premiere, because I'm trying to save the bandwidth. Now, if one day this thing starts to pay for itself, that might change. But, and again, I'm in a fortunate position where, at least for now, my health is not as so much of a concern where, if I had to feed myself, and so if I was in a position of having nothing right now, I could absolutely go drive a truck right fucking now, right? So I'm don't feel bad for me. I'm not in a bad situation at all. But I'm a human, and like everybody, I do experience some trepidation, and it's a kind of a cliched phrase at this point, but I think fear and loathing, that can be, and actually that's an apt descriptor in a lot of ways. And I really, and I know I'm kind of all over the map here with my discourse, but please bear with me. I think I'll get somewhere interesting, and I'll try to tie it back to the quantum epic stuff before I wrap up. I got about approximately 20 more minutes here, it looks like. And well, shit, did I sidetrack myself again? Come on, Benton, you're better than this. Oh, so I noticed I'd been in, because when I lived out of a backpack and lived as a vagabond for all those years, I was mostly traveling place to place. And at times, especially as I got to know the country better and I got to know certain spots, certain places I could go certain times of year based on the weather, based on the resources. Can I get work there or not? Is the panhandling a thing or not? Food stamps, all of this. So I sort of had a system in place. Well, so generally I was on the move for the most part. Well, I noticed I'd been in Santa Barbara, California for several months. And then when I got the itch to leave, and when I went to leave, I was just filled with like fear and hesitation and trepidation. But that was my emotions. And then I'm looking at my logical mind, my actual conscious mind, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I've been doing this for years. Like, I know, like, so when I initially, transitioned into that vagabond homeless lifestyle, well, it made sense to be fearful. Like, that was rational, right? But I've talked about before, feelings and emotions are rooted, their nature is irrational. So I was able to recognize, oh, these feelings are just totally irrational because, I've proven it 100 times over that I've got the skill set to do what I'm about to do, and way more, right? So, for me, parking the truck, moving into this motel temporarily, realizing, look, no matter what, at some point, even if it's just me walking away from these belongings, like, or do I really want to buy a car? Again, the things I own end up owning me. Is it worth trying to hang on to these possessions? But then again, if I need to, I can box some of them up, ship them off to my dad's place in Arkansas. And then just the overhead, like the mental overhead of thinking about all this, it does own me to some degree. I mean, there's something to that. Is this my Amazon package being delivered? Oh, this is a London man went live. I set the notification. Yeah, I guess I got to apologize to London, man. I yelled at him on Zetetic Warriors stream before his channel. I guess his channel got taken down. I don't even know how that shit works with YouTube. I guess, well, and that's the thing, as we continue the slow march to 1,000 subscribers, at some point, maybe I will be able to monetize and all this. But, again, I know I got a couple of different topics open now, but let me finish up on the fear and trepidation. So I was able to recognize that, okay, if I was just deciding with my emotions, I would end up staying here in Santa Barbara where I was at the time. But realizing, okay, well, courage is feeling that fear and doing it anyway. So now I'm like, wow, I'm actually having to, tap into my courage here just to leave fucking town, and then I am very intuitive. So, I listen. So sometimes it could just be a voice saying like, hey, hang out just for the timing, right? To keep me out of danger or whatever. If my gut was telling me not to go, that was different. That was my emotions. So I recognize that, necessarily, as I continue to make content, but I'm sort of living my life, flying by the seat of my pants as I've been doing for many years. And then, but I think this is also good. There is an upside because, you know, I need to work on my broadcasting skills. I need to get to where I can do a live stream, even if I'm not feeling my most inspired, even if I'm not, because I am at the peak of my mental powers. I seem to be, between like maybe 2:30 to 3 a.m. Well, I'd say 3 a.m. to about 7 a.m. or so. That seems to be. But back in the truck driving, it gets rolled back a little earlier. But as I sleep in a motel room, it necessarily my hours become a little more conventional. But I'm always going to be an early riser. I love getting up early. Love that shit. Love going to bed early too. That's another thing about the cannabis, whether synthetic or natural. I don't sleep good on that stuff. I really don't. I bet you I'm going to sleep fucking great tonight. Um, yeah, it definitely affects my sleep for sure. Um, so I realize now that I am going through some things emotionally that just really don't make any sense and just they're irrational, and it's not going to hold me back. But and it's nice to kind of pause and because there is sort of a luxury in that truck driving because you know I'm just busy like all day long. It's like there's stuff to do versus now it's almost like it was easier to get the content done because it just sort of got swept up into whatever else I happen to be doing, right? Um, if that even makes sense. Versus now it's like, dude, I could just sit in here and just watch YouTube all day. Or I could just go for a walk and be in the sun for half the day, you know. And that reminds me, I failed to gaze into the sun today, but try to do that every day. Well, most days I accomplish that feat. Um, and then just, physically, and then shout out to JFK Beta. I know he listens to a lot of these, and I'd like to figure out a way to collaborate with him more, sort of bring him into the fold a little more, and maybe Provo Kid to some extent. Although, I'm not the RZA. I'm not the RZA of the Truth or Wu Tang. That's it's more up to Drew, I think. But it sounds like Drew might be open to doing a show. And if anybody remembers, me and Drew did a Sunday night show on D Live, and for about 2 months, and that it might have been 10 shows. I don't really remember, but it's mostly my drinking ended that deal. So me and Drew certainly seem to work well together. And now that the booze is not an issue, and by the way, just delivered from alcoholism. Isn't that amazing? Now I can't say I never think about it because that'd be a lie, but I'm not preoccupied with it, and I don't believe I'm ever going to have a problem with alcohol. And although I never really had well, I don't even want to get into that. I can have an AA meeting anytime. But let's see if I got enough time to wrap up. Yeah, I got about 10 minutes, so we'll wrap up on the stuff with Quantum Epic. She had written me a long email, and look, you know, I appreciate the long email, but I hope you realize I'm not ever going to read it. I mean, it's nothing personal, by the way. And I realized that, how long did I continue to send long emails before and that nobody ever read, you know? Um, it's just not a thing anymore. You got to tighten it up, So I skimmed your email, Quantum Epic, QE. Um, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I get it. I might read a little bit from the email. I actually let me look at it, and I am respectful of people's privacy. And I think, by the way, when you see that, we've had women come up on panel and sort of feel, you know, I can't speak for them, but it seems like they indicated, some of them, that they felt comfortable, over at my channel and all of this. But then, but here's what's funny is that I'm the type, I'll just let Brian O'Shea up there too, right? Like, it's kind of funny. It's like, maybe some of these ladies trust me, but then it's like, but I'm also the type, I might just, I might throw the wild card in there, I might put the shark in the water too. But, I think some of that is, I think they realize that I'm not, I don't know. I can't really speak for them, but I think maybe some of that is that I really do respect people's privacy. But part of this, I really don't care. I mean, it's just not my concern what's going on with a lot of you folks. And I know that might sound callous, but it's true. However, I'm very interested in each and every one of you with respect to the broadcast. And, I like the way in which people can participate. You can have a Roy Duggan in the live chat, and I've appreciated his comments over time. And then one day, just here he is on the panel, and we got to have a nice discussion with him, and who he may never return. We had Sean, several times. He was on the panel like, half the shows in a week one time, and just never to be heard from again. But, I really enjoy, and same thing with QE. It's up to her to determine her level of participation, right? I know I'm kind of repeating myself now at this point, but yeah. But part of that is I'm an extremely private person, which I know sounds insane because I do reveal so much, but I actually am a very private person. And I'm one of those people where it's like the cliche of like, you just, it's, I don't know that any of you will ever actually know me, as crazy as that sounds, because I do put a lot of information out there. But although some have very astutely figured out some things about yours truly, so I shouldn't say that. But generally speaking, you know, I'm a bit enigmatic in that way. But I don't know why I keep going back to talking about myself. Um, and some of this I blame on the illness and the fatigue. I really do. I'm experiencing a serious levels of fatigue on a daily basis. I'll just have to tell you, I'm the type to not show it. I'm the type to sort of put on a happy face. How you doing today? Dick's like, how are you? Oh, I'm great. But it's like, or I'm doing well. But actually, I'm the opposite. Like as much as I say that I'm doing well or I'm doing great, like I'm probably never will be truly, right, at the level of my physical health. But fuck it, who cares? Pain don't hurt. Like part of me likes it, which is crazy. I've had pretty serious nausea most of the day. A part of me likes that. I don't even know what that is. Like, is it just that did I steel myself mentally? Did whatever I put myself through in all those years of living in the streets, was that so difficult and arduous on a daily basis? Did I get so used to living in such a, difficult, trying struggle, daily struggle, that now, like, just being nauseated for most of the day, strong not feelings of nausea for most of the day, is just, it's really neither here nor there, you know? Um, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about, but and I don't say this, for sympathy. I don't want sympathy, actually. And this, when I was homeless, I used to get these looks of pity and sympathy, and I finally just started verbalizing it. I would just say it to, no one in particular. I would just say, well, pity and sympathy, those are not tools that I can do. I can't do anything. Like, I can't use your pity and sympathy and do anything with them. Right. Um, and anytime I've held a cardboard sign, I always show the best side of myself. I don't ever try to show a bad side or, oh, I'm downtrodden. I'm never downtrodden. That's the thing is I have this unconquerable, indomitable will. Like I'm never down, you know. But I get down. I feel down sometimes. I just don't ever stay there, right? So it's almost like, yeah, I'm nauseated, but I don't identify with that feeling of nausea because I know that, you know, there will be a time I won't be nauseated. Um, like this will, whatever this is fleeting. It's all going to pass, including this life. When I was in the best of health, when my health was tip top, that was fleeting. That was going to go. But it seemed like, I was young and invincible like everybody else, right? And, I don't romanticize the past. I don't want to go back to the past. Hell, I love the 90s. I love the 80s. I don't want to go back to that. Are you kidding? Hell, I'm as in love with this tech as anybody. Well, not as in love, but dude, I'm not any different than the rest of you. We're all in love with this stuff to some extent. I mean, whether we want to admit it or not. Now, some of us can take it or leave it. So I shouldn't say in love with, but that's a bit hyperbolic. But I think most of us by this point, we have been assimilated. But I'll tell you the reason why I wanted to do a one-on-one with Quantum Epic in particular was that I've identified her, and I may be wrong, but see, I don't need to get into her biography. I would just ask her, and I would just accept her answer. But I think, because I'm really good at these kind of hunches, I'm pretty sure she was just, and again, I'm sure she's had some novel experiences, but just what I would consider to be very normie, so-called normie, just status quo, living like everybody else. But by the way, I did for many years also, but I was never one of them. But then again, growing up in a mind control cult, I was different from day one, just solely based on, being raised up in that cult. And they did make me into a weirdo, to some extent. But it's not about, oh, woe is me, Benton. I wouldn't change a thing, honestly. Well, a couple of things, but nothing that you would think I would change. Like I really wish there was some footage of me playing basketball. The fact that my family had a VHS camcorder, the fact that I never made one of my family members just come down to the fucking school that was in our neighborhood where on a daily basis I played in pickup basketball games. And the fact that there's absolutely no footage of Benton playing basketball is that's a regret like that. That's something I would change. I would make sure that somebody had at some point had filmed me playing basketball. But yeah, I really want to delve into the psychology, and I think she's mistakenly, which I understand, she's sort of misinterpreted this as me like wanting to pry into her life or her story or whatever. No, I'm not interested in that at all. I'm interested, Quantum Epic, in your current thought process and whatever's going on in your brain now. That's what I'm interested in because I see her as this perfect epitome of something that, probably Drew was one of the first to recognize EBT, but sometimes I'm early to the party on some of these ideas. Toilet Bowl Earth, let's not leave him out of the mix. I think sometimes he feels left out, possibly. I don't know. But certainly we'll include Toilet Bowl Earth in this, aka Tinfoil Straitjacket. And recognizing at a certain point, it was just like, oh, normies are now baby truthers. And that's what I see in Quantum Epic. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And I certainly, and I feel like I had a good handle on this, that she says that feels comfortable in the panel setting, but then the one-on-one might be a little too intimidating. But that's kind of part of the reason for it is because then I've recognized, well, now she's not going to have anywhere to hide. Because I really would like to be able to explore her psychology in real time because I would like to crawl inside the mind of the normie / baby truther. But maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. If she'd like to cooperate and participate rather and get in where she fits in. And it's not an insult. I'm not insulting you, QE. We were, and what does normie even mean, by the way? What does that even mean? Is that even a pejorative? I'm not calling you an NPC. Although I suspect many of your actions and behaviors in the past were very NPC-like. Well, so were mine. Although maybe I'm just, and maybe you're just in a earlier phase of a progression, and I'm just farther down that same progression. I don't know. I do though, and I don't know how much of this I can, as we got about 4 more minutes, and I got to wrap up here. Now I probably will talk more about this, because one thing she did mention in the email that she probably would not mind me revealing is she seems to be enthralled with me living out of the backpack and traveling around for most of 10 years. So, yeah, she seems to want to hear more about that. And I know some folks enjoy those stories, so I probably will get more into that, as time goes on. But I'm a bad storyteller, as many of you probably know by now, and I'm dependent on some sort of emotion. It's hard for me to just come on here and talk without feeling something, you know. And I think Dick did a good job sort of delving down into some of my creative, aspirations. And a lot of this is, it's just like, dude, I feel compelled to make content. And, thankfully I don't have to try to sit down at a typewriter or a, computer keyboard anymore. And, I used to love to write, and now I almost never write. And it's been replaced with whatever this is. What are we even calling this? The metaverse. It is Ready Player Benton. And, Benton's going to make it one way or another. I've realized that I have to be able to eat a certain amount of a certain type of food every day, and I have to have access to a base level of nutritional supplements. And in order to do that, I'm looking at it's probably about $60 a day just for that. Most likely, I mean, believe me, that's cutting it down. It's when I'm living in the truck, making $1,000 plus a week, I'm not even worried about it. I'm just buying everything. And again, it's not a Benton pity party. I'm not in dire straits here, but I certainly want to continue to make the content. And hopefully, I made sense with the quantum epic stuff. Maybe I didn't. I'm still fleshing some of those ideas out. And I will say this in conclusion, quantum epic, you can participate or not participate, but as long as you're on the panels and showing up in the live chat, I will gather enough information about your psychology that I will just do the like Yurt did the narcissism masterclass. I'll just do the baby truther masterclass. I'll do it with or without you at a certain point. So, you might want to participate, but that's totally up to you. In conclusion, hit me up on email. Any of you, JFK Beta, possibly in particular. Not quite sure what his schedule is looking like, but I'm trying to do. I want to do a minimum of what'll end up being right around 59 minutes, probably, because I don't want to go over that 1 hour and then have to actually edit the file. And yeah, I'd like to have some one-on-one, just audio only discussions in there somewhere. So anybody that's interested in some sort of loosely scheduled, midday, early afternoon conversation, get at me, BentonJA@protonmail.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.